Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is the Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call for March 8th of 2022. I am Brian T. Jackett, your host for today. On our agenda, we got some great topics, but first, as always, we'll go through our latest news updates and announcements from the Microsoft 365 Platform ecosystem. We'll do our group picture time in our together mode as usual, and then we'll have some demos. We have Ihan and Vesa talking a little bit about Viva Connections, SharePoint Framework, in one of the longest titles ever I think we've had for one of our sessions, so thank you for that. Vijay will be coming to talk to us a little bit about bots, working with teams, and actually working with user presence. Some great information on there. And then Sebastian will be joining us again to talk a little bit about MGT and building with our Angular frameworks. Now, for those of you who are new, or if you've been a long time member joining in, we've got a couple different resources for you to be able to take a look at. A lot of links on the page, but just note that we have both our Microsoft 365 developer videos and our Microsoft 365 community videos. All of the various community calls that we have go into the community session. So after this call is over, you'll be able to find the recording within about 24 hours or so. You can find that at aka.ms/m365pmp/videos. Great way to see other content out there, as well as our developer videos as well under aka.ms/m365dev YouTube. We got a lot of great open source initiatives that are available in the community. So if you're looking for different things that are going to be available for you, things where you can contribute in, be able to share your contributions back, we'd love to have you out there. A lot of different links you can find on the page on there, as well as samples galleries. It's great to be able to hear about things, maybe see them demos here in our calls. What if you actually want to go and actually try this out in your own environment? A lot of great samples that are out there. We'll show you some more on some more of our following slides, but feel free to join into those and take a look. And as always, if you want your one-stop shop for all the different information, all of the meeting invites, all the different types of things that are coming up, please take a look at aka.ms/m365pmp. You can find all the information that you need to be able to join in with us. And if you are looking for a way to be able to work with this development, it's great to have a sandbox environment. And as part of this, you can join the Microsoft 365 Developer Program. With this, you'll actually get a free E5 developer tenant with 25 user licenses. Great way to actually go and actually test out some of the different samples, solutions, be able to actually see what they look like in a live environment. Feel free to take a look at aka.ms/m365/dev program. And now we do have instant availability. So again, no need to go off and make a whole pot of coffee or work on lunch while you're waiting for this thing to go in provision. You can actually get that instant access as soon as you apply for this. Also, a number of different great learning resources are available. You can find information in terms of different platforms, different modules, learning paths, other things like that. All of this provided for free, so we would love for you to join in with this. Find more at aka.ms/m365/dev/learn. Lots of great content being added into there, updated, and frequently available for everyone. So please do take a look at that. And I'm very happy to announce that after many weeks of waiting, we have finally crossed the 900 threshold on our samples gallery. We're actually up to 961 as of this morning, so we are oh so close to 1,000. Today we got the cheesy little balloon and fireworks and hat graphics on our slide. When we hit the 1,000 though, Vesa will have to figure out something a little bit more special for us to celebrate this out there. But you can go take a look at a lot of different samples that are out there, whether it's for SPFX, whether it's for adaptive cards, and a lot of other areas. Find more at aka.ms/m365/samples. Lots of great things out there. Please, please, please continue contributing out there. And we'll wait for that special day when we do hit the 1,000 mark out there. And we'll turn things over to David to talk a little bit about our Sharing is Caring initiative.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Well, as Brian had mentioned, you saw all those samples that were available. And, it's only because of amazing contributors like yourself submitting them to be available for the community. And we know, though, that times may be difficult for doing that. You may not understand how to use GitHub, or it may be new to you. Sharing is Caring is a program that is here to provide hands-on guidance for you to learn how to do a number of things, including submitting some of those amazing samples that you would like to share with the community, how to submit a PR in GitHub, how to update documentation. Perhaps you're just getting started with your development story and you want to set up your workstation, you want to learn more about VS Code, or you'd like to become a presenter on one of the calls. All of which we want to help you do. And in these sessions, which are safe space, live, hands-on, you're going to work alongside with members of the community and members of Microsoft and members of the Patterns and Practices team. We've got our Viva Connections ACEs coming soon. In fact, just had a meeting this morning with Louisa Fries and Dare Cash Peterson. So that's going to be coming up very, very soon. And today is the Power Platform sample. So head over to mka.ms/sharing is caring, and you're able to access the registration for that. It's later today. And we're scheduling new sessions for the upcoming month. So bear with us as some of the schedules have been a little tricky as we got a lot of conventions and Microsoft related events coming up. We're trying to schedule around, but we're trying to make sure some of those are available for everyone around the globe. We are an inclusive worldwide community, so we want to make sure that times are available for everyone all around the world. And next week is our Ask Me Anything for PNP.js, March 15th. You can get signed up for that. And we've got a Viva Connections Aces Ask Me Anything coming up soon too. So lots of amazing opportunities to collaborate with everyone in the community. aka.ms/sharing is caring. Brian, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David. And one quick question we did get in the chat on here is, can we join those AMAs if we just want to listen in? Absolutely. There is no requirement to be having questions or even need to speak up in there. If you just want to sit in and learn, absolutely welcome to join in like that.
Yep, welcome to do that. And if you've got questions you want to ask, but you're not comfortable asking them, you can submit them in advance and we'll ask them for you. And we're starting to record the first bit of it so that they're available for the rest of the community after the fact.
Excellent. Thanks so much, David. Next up in our announcements and so forth, we do have a couple of different podcasts that you can listen in to hear more about the Microsoft 365 landscape. First one being the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast with our very own Jeremy Thake and Paul Schaeflein. Great way to hear what's some of the news and announcements, other different developments happening in our ecosystem. Also some interviews that happen, you'll see with MVPs, with product group managers, lots of other folks like that. You can find more at M365 Dev Podcast to listen in and subscribe. And we also have the Microsoft 365 PMP Weekly with our very own Vesa and Waldek. Great way to hear, again, different announcements, news, other things like that. Also some interviews with community members. So great way to find out what's going on, to listen in and tune in with different kind of announcements like that. You can find more for the video of this at aka.ms/PMP Weekly, as well as the podcast at pmpweekly.podbean.com. Now, in terms of news, it was a little bit more on the lighter side of things. We did want to cover two quick items on here for the Microsoft 365 developer blog. We did have an update just in terms of being able to do work with Microsoft Teams apps. Tomomi had a great article on here talking about the Teams toolkit and ways you can actually go about doing debugging, being able to set up your environment, to actually set up the configuration for the toolkit itself. Lots of great little tips and tricks that she's walked through in here. So please take a look at that if you're working with your team's development. Great information for Visual Studio Code and other things like that. And the other piece of news is just an announcement around the SharePoint Online machine translation service. This is going through a retirement process that'll be happening later this summer. I believe it's in June or July timeframe. But if you are making use of this API today, please take a look at this and see what the impacts will be. Essentially, there'll be some deprecations and some retirement. There will be still support just from a backwards compatibility standpoint that the API will still exist there, but it will be returning exceptions. So if you're trying to call into this, make sure that you plan accordingly and that this will not impact your usage of SharePoint. Now I'll turn things over to Wajid to talk a little bit about some Teams platform updates. Wajid, if you'd like to take the floor.
Thank you, Brian. So here I would like to cover updates from the Teams platform as well as the documentation update. Starting with the Teams platform update to the left top, now we have a newer manifest schema version, which is 1.12, and we have added a new property to have a common place to specify the authorization part for your application, wherein now you can specify not only just the application permission, but also the delegated permissions. So with the delegated permission support, now you can call the SDK methods by getting these permissions. So this now enables you two new features. Left, you see share to stage as well as in-meeting purchase dialog. So share to stage allows you to share an entire content as well as share a specific part of your application to the meeting stage. And in-app purchase allows you to show a purchase dialog from within the tab. We also now support a test preview for your Monetize app by adding this preview offer ID in your manifest. Coming to the documentation update, Brian, could you please play the video? For the documentation update, we started with the step-by-step guide to have a linear flow in the application. We also introduced glossary for the words which we are using in Teams application development, so that for any developers it's easy. And we are also moving to have a scenario-specific documentation wherein we talk about the developer journey through various phases for our developers so that it becomes very easy to understand end-to-end flow. And if you like to subscribe for any changes happening on the documentation as well as the Teams platform, you can use the RSS feed link given at the bottom, which is aka.ms/Teams platform updates. We'll keep updating this feed with the latest information. And if you have a feedback around anything, you can use aka.ms Teams platform feedback link. Thank you, Brian. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the updates, Wajid. And also a quick note about our Learn from the Community initiative. This is being run by Aicha. She was on a couple of weeks ago to talk a little bit about this. A great way for us to plug into various folks that are in the community, see what they're building. A lot of times these will be folks in the education space or other areas. So a great way to plug into this and see what's being developed. If you're looking for more about this, you can follow the AKA link for this on aka.ms/learn-from-the-community/this-week. That'll get updated on a regular basis. Or if you actually have a story that you'd like to share out, you can also submit that in, whether it's ideas or people that you'd like to have on there. You can find more at aka.ms/share-your-story. So great initiative out there. Would love to have you join in with this and follow along. And at this point, we will turn things over for our photo mode. So Vesa, if you'd like to do the sharing for this, we can everyone turn on your cameras. We'd love to see all your bright, shining faces, waving hands and all.
No rush yet, no rush. We're recording just in case, but we have 50 seats. A few more.
I love seeing people pop on and they're brushing their hair, they're getting all ready and propered.
Yes, that is true.
Good. Oh, and pulling the hoodies up too. That works as well.
I guess we're fully booked. Let's do some hand waving, everybody. Thank you for joining once again. Really cool to have you on the call. I can see dancing on the middle. That's really good. So really great to have you in the call. Thanks, everybody. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Cheers, and back to you, Brian.
Thank you. Let's go back to our presentation. And thank you for joining in with our picture time. Now we'll move into our demo section. Vesa,
let me share my screen and we'll move forward from there. So 1 second, setting up everything ready. So welcome on this demo. So we wanted to actually talk about a bit on the modernized app catalog for Viva connections and SharePoint, which is a journey we've been having for quite a long time. Just to recap, my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a program manager in the Microsoft 365 platform side of the house, and Jihan is actually the owning PM program manager on this feature. But because of the time zones, and we don't yet have one single time zone across the world. I've been pushing on that for years. It doesn't seem to catch up. It's actually midnight on her location. So it's just fair for me to actually show what's happening here and what is the new things. And we agreed that I'll take over this demo so she doesn't need to stay up too late. But anyway, so we've been working on this journey on modernizing the store experience in the SharePoint and Viva connections for quite a long time. And now we're rolling out the modernized app catalog. If you are a tenant administrator, you might have actually already seen a message center post related on the changes which are coming. Today, we're going to talk about the key updates, which is happening in here. And I'm going to do a live demo as well on showing the real new experience, which is actually pretty cool. You can see the experience now on the right side. So it's fully, completely modernized. I will show you the current or the class or the previous experience so you remember and see how much work has been actually happening here. But basic idea of this location is to have one place to upload, manage, and deploy your SharePoint framework solution for your organization. And that's basically for creating those custom components which can enrich and modernize the UX of the SharePoint or Viva connection, or actually Microsoft Teams as well. So it's basically for managing the SharePoint framework solutions, which are then targeting for Microsoft Teams, Viva connection, and SharePoint. Now, the key updates in this area can be divided right now in two different main points. Number one being the modernized app request process. I'm going to show that one in practice today, so you'll kind of understand what this means and how things work. And this has been already rolled out to the production, but it hasn't been necessarily super clear that it's actually out and what it means and how it can be accessed and all of that. So we're going to do a live demo on that one today. And then the one which is now currently enrolling, so potentially if depending on rings where your tenant is. If you're in targeted release tenant mode, you might have actually seen this already, but the whole app catalog is getting modernized, aligning with the administrative UX in Microsoft 365, because the app catalog can be considered as an administrative operation, even though it might be a bit different administrator. So in certain cases, again, depending on customer sites, if it's a larger customer, might be dedicated app catalog administrators, which are not actually tenant administrators. So therefore, there's certain, let's say, permission level considerations here as well. We're going to talk about those in the roadmap slide a bit. Now, before we go to the actual demo and talk about the upcoming features and all of that, I just wanted to actually recap what is the app catalog and how it looks like in the classic experience, or how it has been looking like until now. And this is actually, to be honest, this is pretty rough and ugly. We haven't actually done significant amount of investments in the app or in the store for many years, until we started kind of investing much more on this area within 1.5 years ago, if I remember correctly. But you can pretty much see, if I go one step back, that the experience, which we can see here, looks like a SharePoint 2013 UX experience. So there was a long time when the app catalog and the SharePoint add-ins, especially, were not getting any investments. Well, technically, SharePoint add-ins are not getting any investments even still, but SharePoint Framework is, and because SharePoint Framework is actually using the app catalog behind the scenes and for deployment management, that's why we are evolving this UX as well. Now, showing here this one, this is basically a screenshot which you're going to see live pretty soon as well. So this is the new modernized app catalog, which is then completely changed, and the features and capabilities are exactly the same. So you can still use, of course, the app catalog also for SharePoint add-ins. We're going to talk about that one briefly in the after the demos as well. And you can use it for SharePoint Framework. And then as part of the app catalog, you have all of the different capabilities which you had in the classic, but we removed all of the complex UX, ribbon settings and configurations and all of that. So making this more aligned with the standard administrative UX experiences, so that it's super clear what you can do here and what's happened behind the scenes. Now, as I can see, absolutely brilliant question from Stefan, which I should have been probably a bit more clear, is that this is not going to technically replace your existing app catalog. It will get modernized. So all of this is just that you don't need to do anything. The existing app catalog will have just a completely modernized UX. So locations are not changing, status is not changing, behaviors are not changing, functionalities are not changing. All of the apps which you have already there will be there still. We're just overlaying the whole modernized UX on top of it and making it look much nicer. That's kind of the idea here. Now, before I go to the actual demo to talk about the end user acquisition process and then the administrative operations, and you see this one in practice, so it's not just pictures and smoke and mirrors. I just wanted to pinpoint out as well that we have done some changes on the app catalog creation. It's still not yet fully automatic, but it will create itself automatically when you try to access the app catalog first time. So when you go to the administrative UX and you go to the admin settings, I'll show this one in practice in the demo. It will actually click the apps, which is a bit confusing, or add-ins. It will actually start creation of the app catalog, and it will automatically create that to a URL/site/app catalog. So it will be then waiting on that URL. This will no longer debate should we create this automatically for every single tenant or not, but that's a separate discussion which we're not going to have on this call. But that's a quick demo on also actually on the speed. So it's relatively fast to get it created, which wasn't the case in the past, and also it's fully automatic. So from the more features, you click the apps and open, and that starts the automatic creation of site collection. If, by the way, the app catalog site collection URL is already taken for whatever reason, which was pretty super weird, it's going to take another site collection URL. So it's okay. All of that is taken into account. Now, Can we create an app catalog per site? So can you have a site collection app catalog? Absolutely 100%. We're not going to take any of the existing features away. You can still have a site collection app catalogs. All of those features are still in the future. In here, we're basically just focusing on modernizing the app catalog site collection experience and making it aligned with the administrative UX. So let's have a look on that one in practice. So let me first go, let's see if I can actually remember correctly. Yes, that's the normal end user. So in this case, I'm the end user. I'm going to start the flow of acquisition or acquiring a solution from the store. We're going to have a look on the request process a bit, and then the administrative view after that. But I'm actually now in a team site called Team. That was super imaginary, really well named team site. And I can go now here and click New and Add. And I can see the new add experience. And I can also see what are the solutions, for example, which have been added, or the solutions which are coming from my organization. And these would be solutions which have been installed explicitly to my app catalog, but are not coming from the store. And then, of course, I can acquire features from the store as well. So let's say here, Skybow is quite cool. List Burst, that's actually a pretty cool solution as well. And it has even Viva connection capabilities on it. So as I'm an end user, and currently you cannot, as I'm an end user, currently you cannot acquire any SharePoint framework solution from the store, because quite often SharePoint framework solutions do require administrative permissions, and they need to be approved by the administrator to get installed on a tenant. That's kind of a security reasons as well. So as I'm an end user, I can request that solution to be added, and I can add here something like our business people would like to have this show sales based on region. So that request is then being sent to the administrator. So me as an end user, I can of course go to my requests. I can see what are the solutions which I've been requesting to get acquired and to get available in my tenant. And then the administrator actually is responsible of making decisions. Are we going to do that? Are we going to not do that? Now I can see the requests here, and of course I can go to the SharePoint store, or I can go back on the site from my apps, or back to the team from here. So I can go back on the sites as well. Now, by the way, in the team store site, you will see a lot of changes in the future as well. So because again, we're pushing heavily the Viva connection story in multiple fronts. So we're trying to make sure that if partners want to have their solutions in the store, they will be surfaced in multiple locations in the most efficient way, so that partners get value out of their store submissions. Now, I have now 2 items requested as an end user, and let me put a different hat on my role. So I'm the administrator now. So different role, and I'm in the administrator admin view. If you go back in the admin center, we need to go to the app catalog, so Viva connection and SharePoint app catalog, which is under the SharePoint. A bit confusing again, because you could actually have SharePoint framework solutions which are targeted for teams in here, but that's something that we're working on the future as well. So I can click more features, and then I can click apps from here. So when I click the open, it will either create the site collection, or it will redirect me to the site collection which has been already created, which is the case in this tenant. And we can see immediately the new site collection and the new features, and where we have all of the new cool filtering mechanism, view mechanisms, all of that available. And we can see that it's actually fully modernized. So it's aligned with the admin UX, which we have across the admin operations. And of course, when I do operations or details in the app level, then the experience is a bit modernized as well. First of all, quickly on the app requests, let me go in there. There's a pending set of app requests, which is list bursts and charts, and those are the ones which are pending. For example, Itchy Chart is really cool solution. Also works in Microsoft Teams, well, targeted actually even Microsoft Teams. And we can see that the request was based on that. We can see the details, and we can request and approve that to be acquired. And that will then start the acquisition process of the solution. Me as an administrator, I will be presented where the data is hosted, what are the permissions and all of that, and I can confirm that to be available in the tenant. And that then, of course, makes the solution to be available in the tenant for the end users to use. Now, for a lot of the questions, I'll follow up on those, by the way, a bit after my demo. One thing also to notice is we modernized the fact that it detects if you have APIs which you need to approve, so we can actually jump to the API access page directly in here, because in this case, solution required APIs to get approved before it works. The UX is showing that and then encouraging the administrator to go to the API access page to actually approve them. Now, coming back on here, if I go on Manage Apps, all the features have been modernized, but of course, all the features which we have are still the same. So I can still drag and drop, for example, SharePoint Framework solutions from development environment or from file system directly to the tenant, and I can install those solutions. And as part of the installation, the messages, all of these are exactly the same as they were, but again, it has been modernized, so it's more clear. The text has been updated, and I have more control as an administrator what's actually happening as I'm approving this solution to be deployed. So as an example, in this case, we're going to do a tenant scope deployment for that web part. So pretty simple and easy to do. And again, it had API requests, so I can actually go to the API access page in here. Now, the one thing to notice also is that the whole UX has been modernized, so it's no longer looking like a SharePoint site collection. And there's some ideas in here. I'm going to talk about that one when I go back in slides. But the key point that is that you can actually see even access to API access page, the administrative location to manage the APIs from here. You can easily access the store. You can easily access SharePoint Admin Center. So it's more aligned on the administrative operations, even though, again, app catalog administrator might be a different person than the SharePoint administrator or the tenant administrator, and we'll talk about that one in a second. But that's pretty much quickly recapping what do we actually have in here. And again, if I click that one, it will show me the API access in the SharePoint Admin Center and all of the requests related on my applications, which I need to, or if I want to, I can get them approved. But much, much, much nicer UX for sure than it was actually a while back. Now, let's go quickly on the slides. I'm not going to spend too much time in here, but just a recap on what are we actually doing. First of all, what are the next steps for SharePoint Framework Solution and App Catalog? So we keep on investing in here. So you can, in future, you can acquire Viva Connection and SharePoint solutions directly from Microsoft App Source. It's pretty crazy that actually that is not supported currently, which is mind-boggling. Viva Connection app type will be in App Source, so you can easily find them. Viva Connection category will be in Store and in App Catalog, so you can kind of start thinking abstractions on top of that app catalog. So it's more about the Microsoft 365 hosted apps, and then where are you targeting that in Viva Connection or SharePoint or in Teams, it will have a different views. We're working also on auto update on SharePoint Framework Solutions from Store. So if you're an ISV and you have a newer version there, and the administrator allows that auto update to happen, that's going to be happening behind the scenes if you wanted to choose to do so. Showing additional metadata details in SPFX solution, also in App Catalog is available. That's something which is working for solutions which we acquire from the store, but as I'm installing a solution from local to the App Catalog, there's this kind of a disparity or difference between the icons and descriptions and all of that. End user acquisition for SPFX solutions is in planning, in roadmap. Site collection app operations in modern UX are going to be modernized. Integration of SharePoint Framework App Catalog to admin UX is in plans as well. Now, this will happen whenever we can actually have more granular based access in the tenant admin operations. So you can then dedicate individual sections of the Microsoft 365 admin UX, for example, for your app catalog administrators. And then the final note before we go to the next demo, I just want to call out, we are investing in all of this from the perspective of SharePoint Framework and as the primary location. So the SharePoint adding model hasn't really got that much, no investments within many years, and SharePoint Framework should be the UX level replacement. And then if you have a separate application which is connecting to the SharePoint Online or anywhere in Microsoft 365, please use the Azure AD based permission management and access points on that. That's the right way of doing things in the future. And more guidance on that one is, of course, in the works. But that's all I have time to go through within this demo. I'll answer some of the questions which I did not have time to answer during the demo.
Yes. Yes, there's a long list of questions about provisioning and what happens to the previous store and a lot of other things. So yeah, if you want to take a look through those, Bessa, if we need to have a follow-up session on that too, I'm sure we could schedule some time for that as well.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bessa. Great to see this, and appreciate everyone sharing their comments, questions, and other feedback into the chat window. With that, we'll turn things over to Wajid to talk to us a little bit through bots using presence and other areas. All right, I see your slides, Wajid. I think you're all set to go.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Hello, everyone. My name is Vachit, and I'm a program manager for Microsoft Teams Developer Community Responses. And I'm back with another scenario-based samples, which I'm going to demo and also do a code walkthrough. So to get started, we'll talk about the scenario, which is detecting the user presence and sending a notification using bot. We'll also do this demo locally. We'll run this and have a demo. After that, we'll do a code walkthrough and take questions around that. So let's dive into it. So when you talk about the change notification for Graph, it's a way of providing a webhook mechanism to deliver the changes happening and provide that information back to client. And the way it happens is as a client application, you subscribe to a particular notification and you provide a webhook URL where you want to receive the notification. In current sample, the bot actually subscribes to the present change notification for the current user. And whenever the status gets changed for the current user, it just sends a proactive message. This particular sample is present at aka.ms/team sample, and which is under graph-change notification folder. To talk about running this sample locally, we'll be cloning this repo. I've already opened this solution. Next part, we'll be actually creating a Azure bot and capturing the required app ID, app secret, and the connection string. And we'll use an ngrok to run that locally. And we'll sideload and try this out. So I'm just switching to my Visual Studio. So I have change notification sample open. I have app setting.json wherein we have these 4 parameters which values needs to be put in, and we'll be updating the manifest file to get started. So let's start with the Microsoft App ID and app password. To get this information, you go to Azure portal, start with create a new resource and search for Azure bot. Once you search for Azure bot in the marketplace, you'll find an entry for a bot creation process. So let this load and you see a Azure bot here. And I click on create. Providing a name for bot. Change notification demo, and I'm actually going to try this in a different tenant. So I'm just providing a multi-tenant app. So we'll just review this and we'll let this create the app. The validation is passed. I think we have the app bot handle available. And it's now what it's doing is it's creating a Microsoft App ID, and it's also creating a Azure bot and associating with that Microsoft app. Okay, this will just take a couple more seconds. Once we have that, we'll go ahead and make the required changes for enabling this bot to support in a Microsoft Teams. So let's go to the resource. To start with, let's go to channels, and this is where we are enabling Microsoft Teams as a channel. So this bot can be used inside Microsoft Teams. So we have done this setting for the channel now. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and visit the configuration page. We'll keep a copy of Microsoft App ID. I'll go ahead and copy it back in the solution. Okay, so now we App ID. Let's go ahead and fetch the second parameter of what we are looking for. Let's go to manage. And under certificates and secret section, let's just create a new client secret. Let's add. And let's copy this value back to the. Okay, so now we have Microsoft App ID and password. The next thing we need is a connection name and a base URL. For the base URL, what I'm doing is I'm just running the ngrok on port number 3978. So this is just to connect my local development setup and have a HTTP endpoint, which I can use in my bot code. So just copy the contoso.ngrok.io. I just pasted it here, and let's go back and try and get the connection name information for this. Okay. For connection name information, first thing you need to do is you need to add a redirect URL. So I'm just adding a web application and we are putting a redirect URL for the bot framework. And this is used to actually get a access token from the Graph API, and using that access token, we'll be actually configuring and subscribing to the change notification. So we are done with this part. We have added a redirect URL. Let's go back to bot and let's add a OAuth connection setting. So when we are adding OAuth connection setting, let's call it as auth, and we are using Azure AD V2 as a service provider. Let's copy the client ID, same as a Microsoft App ID, and the app secret, what we have already copied back in our code. So let's go and grab that information. And let's put in the client secret. So the tenant ID here, if you want to restrict your app to be a specific tenant, you can specify the tenant ID. If you want to keep it available for other tenants, you can call it as common. And in terms of scope, we are using presence. We are requesting presence permission. So I'm just copy pasting the scope required for this sample. OK, once we fill in all this information, just save the connection string, and let's just go back and update our sample with this connection string. So that is auth. So now we have all the required information for this sample. Next thing what we need to do is update the manifest file. I'll just run the sample so that it loads up, it builds and loads up. Meanwhile, I'll go ahead and update the manifest. You just need to update two values. You need to update the manifest app ID and the bot ID part for this. So as you could see, this is running on 3978. Let me minimize this and go ahead and update the manifest. So I just copied the bot ID we have. Same bot ID I'm using for app as well. And let's go ahead and create a new manifest. Let's just zip the manifest we have here. Just compress it to zip. And we have our manifest file ready. So I'll just copy the path and we'll be heading over to our demo tenant. I'm just switching to demo tenant here. I've logged in using Megan's account here. And what I'm doing is I'm uploading the custom app to my personal app section. So let's go ahead and add. So once the adding is done, we'll start seeing the updates here. Okay, let me just confirm if we have modified the endpoint. OK, so I think we missed to modify the endpoint URL. So I'll just copy paste this value. Otherwise, our bot will not be able to listen anything. OK, let's go ahead and save this. OK, back and try this one more time. OK, let's type in help. OK, now you could see we started receiving API post messages to ngrok, and it's The first step is to do the login part. We will start seeing the login part as soon as this code runs. And once the login is completed, the entire subscription part will start. So let me click on sign in. Okay, accepting the permissions. And once the sign-in is completed, we'll be able to get a message which says what's the current state for this particular user. So right now it's a busy, so we should see a message saying that's a busy status. And the way you could just test this is you go ahead and change the status to, let's say, do not disturb. And once you get the notification, once you get the message endpoint, bot will send you a notification saying your status is do not disturb. I think I just got the previous message as well. So this is how this works. So we have this whole setup ready locally. Before moving on to the code walkthrough, I just want to talk about one scenario what we have built ourselves and which we use internally is to track the questions. So whenever there's a new post made on a GitHub for an issue, we have a bot which has a subscription to read for channel messages. And once the new message posts in a channel, we get a notification and we actually track it and send a proactive message in the channel saying, hey, this is the tracking ID for this GitHub question. And then there's a assigned to person. So we have built this end to end using the exact same scenario. Moving on to the code walkthrough. Component-wise, we're using bot SDK, v4 Graph API components, and also using a background service to monitor and renew the subscription. Note that the subscriptions are time-bound. For the presence, it's valid only for 1 hour. After 1 hour, it gets expired, so you need to renew those subscription. And flow-wise, we have seen the login experience. Then we, as a code-wise, we capture the conversation reference. We subscribe for the change notification and the actual notifications are handled at API/notifications endpoint. So let's get into the specifics. This is the first one where what we are doing is whenever we get a first message, we are just storing the conversation reference. And this is happening in memory just for a demo purpose. We're just storing it there. Next part is the actual subscription part. So we are creating subscription for the communication/presence/user ID. So this is actually listening for current user's presence and the change type is updated. Point to note here is we actually specify the ngrok endpoint where the changes would be notified and we request for this subscription. And the last bit, which talks about the handling for this process. So once status is changed, there would be post request made with the body, which contains the information for the current user. So you read that information and go through the conversation references, what you have saved. And you actually send a notification which says this is the current status, and you can again change the status to get notified. So just to summarize, we had a demo covering end-to-end scenario for status update. We saw how to run the sample locally. Key points covered were the capturing conversation, subscribing to change notification, and handling the actual notification and sending the proactive message. Provided few resources, the send proactive message documentation and also the documentation on graph side, which talks about the notification changes in user data. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on ik.ms/Teams platform feedback page. For any other questions, we'll take it over chat. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you so much, Wajid. Excellent information. Love the demo and getting to see this in action. Appreciate that. I did see 1 or 2 questions in the chat. If you'd like to go back to there and respond to those, that'd be appreciated.
Yep.
And with that, we'll turn things over to Seb to talk us through some more with MGT talking to Angular.
So let me just share quickly my screen. So continuing on our journey to discover the Microsoft Graph Toolkit and all the different components and ways to integrate with your existing applications, today I wanted to discuss the Angular case. We have seen, especially based on the usage, that there is a lot of usage of the Microsoft Graph Toolkit with Angular the full SPA framework from Google, which is absolutely awesome. And we wanted to provide some easy ways to integrate with Angular. So today I really want to bring you onto a journey of creating an Angular app, making it as seamless as possible to integrate with the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. But before we dive into a little bit deeper, let me do just a little bit of a recap of what is the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. So the toolkit is a collection of reusable, framework agnostic components and auth providers that allows you to access and work with Microsoft Graph. So think about functional pieces of code that you can drop into your app that automatically connects to Microsoft Graph, styles the components, really leaves us the hard work of building components that you can then just reuse inside your apps. But you're not stuck with our components. You can build on top of them, you can customize them, and you can make them work with any web frameworks. We've already discussed a lot about just plain HTML. We also discussed about React last week. Well, this week is all about another one, Angular. And as it's the case for a vast majority of the web frameworks today, they basically work on any modern browsers. Why would you care about the Graph Toolkit? Well, first, it cuts on development time. You can easily add UI components that access Graph with just a few lines of code. It's really, really simple to bring them in without having to build a full pipeline or a full infrastructure to bring these in, don't have to style any of that. It's just they're out of the box. They're beautiful. They look like Microsoft 365 components, but they're also flexible to really respect your own brand and bring your own styling guides on top of MGT. And it just works everywhere. It works inside Teams, it works inside SharePoint, it works inside Electron, it works inside your SPA, your single page application. It works within Outlook, it works within a bunch of different areas where you would be thinking and you can bring these components in. So think about how this can really extend your experience to other platforms, other capabilities. MGT loves Angular. And there's a couple of reasons why MGT loves Angular. First, Angular is extremely friendly with web components. Web components is the standard that we are building on top of for everything component. So we're not building React components. We're not even building Angular components. We're building standard web components that are available for all HTML frameworks out there. And Angular is extremely friendly with web components. So it makes our job really easy to integrate with Angular, or they're just very, very little settings, and then you're up to go. So if you want to learn more about how to get your app running with Angular, you can go to aka.ms/mgt/Angular, where you're going to find the entire walkthrough that we're going to go through today. How do you get started? Simple. First, you make sure you have installed the Angular CLI, which is the core of how you're going to build an Angular app. So you install globally the Angular CLI. You're going to do a new app. So you're going to use a CLI called ng. So ng new, whatever name of your app, in that case, demo MGT Angular, and you then install MGT and npm install @Microsoft/MGT, and you are ready to go. So that's as simple as that. So let me go here. Let me go to the actual demo. Let me close my slides and let's go deep into what we want to do. So let's start with our app module. There's a couple of things that you need to do to enable custom components or web components as part of your Angular application. When you're building your app, you're going to get an app module, which is kind of the root of your application. If you're building in React, you would have an index.ts. In here, it's more like that that module.ts file that you're getting. And here, you're going to have to import the custom elements schema. That will allow you to add to any HTML template that you're building. You're going to be able to add unknown HTML elements like the MGT ones, MGT login, MGT agenda, it's going to recognize them and will automatically support adding these capabilities and will not screen for errors over there. What you need to do, you actually need to specify which schemas you want. So you can just go here and add these custom elements here. And the rest is just a standard Angular module with the different subcomponents that we're going to use. Our main component will be our app component, and we're going to have a navbar that on top here, and the agenda component, this one right here. So let's go see our app component. Let's see how it looks like. And this is really where we're going to initialize MGT. So what we're going to do is we will be making sure that we have MGT looped in. First thing we're going to do, we're going to import some of the MGT capabilities as part of our class here. So we're going to import our providers, our MSAL2 provider, our template helper, we're going to come back to this later, and our provider state. Why? Because here, when we will init our Angular module, or in that case, our Angular component, we will want to make sure that we have our client ID hooked onto every single route, every single component that are in there. So basically, you're going to be able to use MGT components all over the place. So we're setting here our client ID that is coming from an environment file that I have that has my actual client ID. Also, I'm providing a simple isLogin function. This will allow me to do some conditional things on my HTML. I will be able to say this specific div or this specific DOM element, I just want it to be rendered when it's logged in. So let's go see at how this looks like in the HTML template that I have. Going to my HTML template here, you're going to find here that I have my very simple toolbar where I have this here, where I have my app navbar right there, and where I have my app agenda. These are the controls that I'm leveraging here. These controls are different components. So let's see how the navbar actually plays out. And this is where we're going to have our MGT login component. So if I go to my navbar and I go to my HTML, I'm going to find here a very simple login class here with my MGT login component. So as you can see, compared to how we're doing it with React, where we're wrapping all of our components in auto-generated React components, here you don't have to do this. You're playing with the raw HTML components, with our raw web components to get the full access to MGT, which makes it super, super simple because there's nothing to translate from HTML to React. So here, just play that in the screen. Automatically, it's going to get loaded. It's going to be able to understand that there is a global providers, that the provider is logged in, and will automatically show up in our screen right there. Same thing with our agenda component. If we go back here, we have our app agenda. If we go to our app agenda, you're going to find that the agenda here will automatically be this guy here, the MGT agenda, and some really cool capabilities that we can do that are MGT stuff but are a little bit specific to Angular. The first one is this syntax, kind of square bracket, closing square bracket. Why do we have them? Well, Angular supports curly braces, so curly brackets, as their way to identify their own capabilities within Angular. So now we're kind of conflicting with Angular. And that is why at the root, so for all of our app, we can simply say, when we go back to our app components, I now want to set the binding syntax. Now I don't want to have curly brackets, I want to have square brackets to represent this. So when we're doing our work, when MGT works on the page, it will use these square brackets, and then we're going to be able to have all of our conditional rendering from MGT and all of that. Like we have here, where we say, when you're going to do click, you're going to call the open web link method. We're going to come back to this one. And I want to display the event.subject, which is exactly what you see here, right? When I'm reloading this one here, automatically it renders just this specific template of an event with just this line of code. As you can see, we also have a click event. So how does this play out? Well, there's a little bit of code that you can put in there where you basically need to attach to the DOM element, to the actual HTML element, which is done using the viewChild directive. That is right here, where you can say, I want to add a template context. That's something we've done in the past with a lot of our MGT components. You can add some capabilities, some functions to the components to do stuff. And in that case, we have open web link that basically just do a window that open of the event that is available as part of the context. And now when I go here and I click on this here, it opens up a new window where I can see my event showing up. So that's really what the only thing you need to know about Angular. The rest, bring as much as you want from MGT in your app. You don't have to think about any other capabilities. You can just bring this straight to your application and it should work natively. Now, a couple of links. If you want to go to our repo, our docs, our issues, the samples that I showed today is available on our sandbox, aka.ms/mgt/sandbox, our playground, our learn modules. I'm all done for today. Brian, back to you.
Thank you so much, Seb, for showing us a little walkthrough on Angular. Love to see all these demos and nice, just easy to consume kind of things for MGT. Great to see this and appreciate you coming on to share about this. Appreciate the very, very extensive chat of everyone asking lots and lots of questions. So great engagement today. Love to see that. If you're interested in joining with any of the other Microsoft 365 developer community calls, we have a number of them available. There is our own M365 platform community call here on Tuesdays. We have other ones as well for adaptive cars, Microsoft Identity, Office Add-ins, Power Apps, Microsoft 365 Community, just on our Thursdays, Data Connections, SPFX, and more. You can find all these assets, the invites and links on aka.ms/M365PMP. And as always, our recordings for these sessions will be popping up on the M365 Community PMP YouTube channel. You can find more about that at aka.ms/M365PMP/videos. Recording should be available within 24 hours. So please do subscribe in today. You can also follow along with us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev or the M365 PMP. We really appreciate you joining in. Our next call will be available on March 15th at 8 a.m. Pacific time as usual. And as well, for all the information that you need, again, that one-stop shop link for you, aka.ms/M365PMP. Really appreciate everyone joining in today. Have a great, wonderful rest of your day or into the next day if you're already in some of the later hours. Thank you again and have a great, wonderful day.